For months, something felt different inside the royal spotlight. Official photographs were released, public schedules were updated, balcony appearances continued as usual. And yet, a subtle absence lingered in the background. Royal watchers began noticing patterns. Prince Louis, once the lively center of many public moments, seemed increasingly missing from key events. No announcement explained it, no statement addressed it, but the silence itself began to speak. Then came the moment that shifted everything. Princess Catherine stepped forward publicly, her tone composed yet undeniably heavy, acknowledging concerns in a way that immediately changed the conversation. What she said did not contain dramatic headlines, but between her carefully chosen words, many heard something deeper, and that was when speculation turned into serious national attention. The setting of her statement was calm, controlled, and formal, exactly what one would expect from a senior royal address. Yet observers quickly pointed out something different. Catherine was not speaking merely as the Princess of Wales fulfilling protocol. She appeared, first and foremost, as a mother. Her delivery was measured, deliberate, and intentionally restrained. She did not provide extensive medical details. She did not use alarming language, but she acknowledged that Prince Louis would be spending time away from certain public duties and events. In royal terms, even a carefully worded acknowledgement like this carries weight. The monarchy traditionally avoids drawing attention to private matters. So, when Catherine chose to address the topic directly, even in limited terms, it signaled that the situation had reached a point where silence was no longer sustainable. To understand why this moment resonated so strongly, it's important to rewind. Over recent months, there had been subtle but noticeable shifts. At events where the Wales family was expected to appear together, Prince Louis was occasionally absent. Initially, this raised little concern. Young children often miss engagements for routine reasons. However, royal correspondents began documenting a pattern. Certain appearances were adjusted at the last minute. Official itineraries were quietly revised. Photographs released to the public sometimes excluded him without explanation. None of these details alone confirmed anything unusual, but collectively, they created a growing sense of curiosity. In the world of the monarchy, where imagery and symbolism are meticulously curated, even small deviations can spark large conversations. Social media accelerated that curiosity. Hashtags referencing Prince Louis began trending during major royal events when he was not present. Online forums debated possible explanations, everything from routine schooling to privacy decisions. Most responsible outlets refrained from speculation, emphasizing that children of public figures deserve protection. However, the longer the silence continued, the louder the public conversation became. The monarchy has historically relied on controlled communication strategies, but in the digital age, absence itself becomes a headline. And as analysts pointed out, the palace's decision not to directly address growing questions allowed narratives to expand beyond official messaging. That tension between privacy and public accountability began quietly building behind palace walls. When Catherine finally acknowledged concerns, the reaction was immediate and global. Major networks interrupted regular programming to analyze her wording. Body language experts dissected her posture. Medical professionals reminded audiences that speculation about a child's health should be handled with extreme care. Importantly, no verified reports confirmed any specific diagnosis, and responsible journalism maintained that boundary. Yet, the emotional impact of her statement was undeniable. By choosing to speak, even cautiously, Catherine shifted the monarchy's approach from complete silence to partial transparency. And that shift raised a larger question. Was this simply a temporary adjustment for a young prince, or the beginning of a deeper transformation in how the royal family handles private challenges in public view? In the days following Catherine's statement, palace communications became noticeably tighter. Brief updates replaced detailed appearances. Public schedules appeared carefully streamlined. Analysts who cover royal protocol pointed out how unusual that shift was. Traditionally, the Wales family maintains a visible, reassuring presence during periods of speculation. Instead, this time, there was restraint. Prince William continued official engagements, but his tone in interviews seemed more reserved than usual. Observers noted shorter responses, fewer spontaneous exchanges, nothing dramatic, nothing headline-grabbing. And yet, in royal watching circles, subtle behavioral changes are rarely ignored. The atmosphere felt protective, almost guarded. It was as if an invisible perimeter had formed around the young prince, reinforcing one unspoken message. Whatever was happening would be handled privately, regardless of public pressure. Meanwhile, reputable journalists began revisiting timelines, not to speculate, but to compare confirmed public appearances with official releases. Certain previously scheduled family moments had been quietly altered over recent months. This alone did not confirm anything concerning. Royal calendars frequently evolve. However, the timing aligned closely with Catherine's increased emphasis on family privacy during speeches. In one address unrelated to health, she spoke about protecting childhood space in an increasingly exposed world. At the time, the comment passed without much analysis, but after her recent statement, those words carried new weight. Viewers began asking whether she had been signaling something long before the public realized. The monarchy thrives on continuity, yet this felt like controlled recalibration. Public empathy surged almost overnight. Messages of support flooded social media, many emphasizing that children, royal or not, deserve compassion above curiosity. Charitable organizations focusing on pediatric health issued reminders about sensitivity and responsible dialogue. Importantly, no official source suggested a life-threatening condition, and major outlets avoided alarmist framing. Still, the emotional tone had shifted. The conversation was no longer about absence at public events. It was about vulnerability within an institution often associated with strength and composure. That contrast struck deeply. For centuries, the monarchy has symbolized stability. Yet here was a reminder that behind ceremonial uniforms and balcony waves are parents navigating the same fears as millions of families around the world. Inside royal commentary circles, a larger institutional question began surfacing. Had the palace's initial silence been protective, or had it unintentionally intensified speculation? Historically, the royal family manages private matters internally until disclosure becomes necessary. But in the digital era, gaps in communication can be filled rapidly by rumor. Experts debated whether Catherine's carefully measured acknowledgement marked a strategic pivot, not toward full transparency, but toward selective openness. It suggested that future communication surrounding royal children may evolve. This was not about breaking tradition recklessly. It was about adapting tradition to modern scrutiny. And adaptation within centuries-old institutions rarely happens without internal debate and thoughtful recalibration. Perhaps the most striking shift occurred in perception rather than policy. Catherine's public image subtly transformed. Previously seen primarily as composed and steady, she was now viewed through a more personal lens, a mother navigating uncertainty under global observation. That human dimension resonated powerfully, yet it also raised anticipation. Would there be further clarification? Would Prince Louis gradually return to public events, or would privacy remain the chosen course? For now, the palace has maintained its position. Limited detail, focused reassurance, continued duty. But one truth is undeniable. The balance between royal tradition and parental instinct has entered a new chapter, and the world is watching carefully to see what that chapter reveals next. As the headlines settled into analysis mode, attention quietly shifted toward Prince William. His role, though less vocal, carried significant weight. Future king, senior royal, and father, each identity demanded something different from him. Publicly, he maintained continuity, attending engagements with steady composure. Yet commentators observed subtle changes in tone. His remarks during charity visits emphasized resilience, family unity, and long-term strength. None of these statements referenced Prince Louis directly, but context reshaped interpretation. Royal observers know that messaging is rarely accidental. Every phrase is vetted, every appearance deliberate. The question was not whether William supported Catherine. That seemed evident. The deeper curiosity centered on how he was navigating the intersection of monarchy expectations and private paternal instinct. History offers perspective in moments like this. The British monarchy has faced periods where personal vulnerability collided with institutional tradition. From past health disclosures to carefully managed family matters, precedent shows a consistent pattern: gradual acknowledgement rather than immediate transparency. Analysts began drawing comparisons, not to dramatize the present, but to understand the rhythm of royal communication. Typically, the palace prioritizes stability, revealing information only when clarity outweighs speculation. Catherine's recent statement fit within that framework: measured, limited, but purposeful. It suggested preparation rather than reaction, and that distinction matters. When disclosure feels intentional rather than forced, it signals strategic timing. Yet, even strategic timing cannot fully quiet a public that senses an unfolding human story. Media pressure did not erupt into chaos, but it intensified steadily. Broadcasters debated how much attention was appropriate. Ethical boundaries became part of the conversation itself. Responsible outlets emphasized privacy, reminding audiences that Prince Louis is still a child. At the same time, royal reporting operates within a unique paradox. Public funding and public interest create expectations of openness. That tension, privacy versus public role, sat at the center of every discussion panel. Meanwhile, the palace remained disciplined. No dramatic rebuttals, no expanded briefings, just controlled messaging. In an age where overexposure often fuels controversy, restraint can be powerful. Yet restraint can also invite interpretation. And interpretation, once unleashed, rarely moves in a single direction. Behind the institutional dynamics, one undeniable truth emerged. The emotional weight of the moment belonged to Catherine. Her decision to speak, however cautiously, altered the trajectory of the narrative. It reframed the conversation from rumor to acknowledgement. Even without detailed disclosure, she validated public awareness. That subtle validation changed everything. Instead of asking, "Is something wrong?" many began asking, "How can the family be supported?" It was a remarkable shift. In crisis communication theory, this is known as reframing through humanization. By positioning herself not only as a royal figure but as a mother, Catherine softened institutional distance. The monarchy did not appear weakened, it appeared human, and humanity, paradoxically, can strengthen long-term credibility. Still, uncertainty lingers. Prince Louis has not resumed a full public schedule, and no timeline has been confirmed. The palace continues emphasizing stability and routine at home. Experts caution against reading too much into absence alone. Childhood health matters can range from minor monitoring to temporary adjustments, many of which resolve quietly. Importantly, no verified report indicates severe or life-threatening circumstances. Yet, the broader narrative now extends beyond medical specifics. It touches on modernization within the monarchy itself. How much transparency is sustainable? How much privacy is necessary? Catherine's statement may not have delivered dramatic revelations, but it may mark something more significant: the beginning of a recalibrated balance between royal duty and deeply personal protection. International reaction unfolded in waves rather than explosions. Global outlets approached the story with caution, emphasizing verified statements while acknowledging heightened public interest. In the United States, morning shows analyzed Catherine's delivery and the monarchy's communication strategy. European commentators focused on institutional precedent. Across Commonwealth nations, the tone was notably empathetic. Importantly, no credible international authority suggested catastrophic conclusions. Instead, the emphasis remained on privacy and compassion. Yet something subtle had shifted worldwide. The royal narrative was no longer centered on ceremony or tradition, it was centered on family. That reframing resonated deeply in cultures that value parental transparency. Without releasing dramatic details, the Wales family had unintentionally sparked a global conversation about how public figures navigate private vulnerability. Public sympathy translated into measurable engagement. Charities connected to early childhood development and pediatric health reported increased traffic to informational pages following Catherine's remarks. Analysts describe this as a halo effect, where a high-profile acknowledgement redirects attention toward broader social awareness. While the palace did not position the statement as advocacy, the ripple was undeniable. Discussions about children's privacy rights intensified. Media ethics panels debated new guidelines. Even within political commentary circles, the conversation shifted toward modernization of constitutional monarchies in the digital era. None of this stemmed from sensational disclosure. It emerged from controlled vulnerability. And that paradox became the most intriguing element of the story: how limited words triggered expansive reflection. Within Britain, public opinion polling reflected steady support for the Wales family. Approval ratings did not decline amid speculation. In many surveys, they stabilized or improved slightly. Analysts attribute this to perceived authenticity. In times of uncertainty, measured honesty often resonates more strongly than rigid silence. Still, the monarchy as an institution faces long-term strategic decisions. Younger generations expect clarity and relatability. Older generations value discretion and tradition. Catherine's approach appeared to bridge those expectations carefully. She did not dismantle protocol, she adjusted its tone. That nuance may shape how future royal communications are structured, particularly when involving children. Quiet evolution rarely feels dramatic in the moment, but its impact can redefine public trust over time. Meanwhile, anticipation remains carefully contained. Royal events continue, public appearances proceed. Yet every upcoming engagement carries subtle curiosity. Will Prince Louis attend? Will there be further clarification? Observers scrutinize seating arrangements, photo releases, and official captions. It is not intrusion alone driving this attention. It is investment. When public figures invite limited insight into personal challenges, audiences often respond with protective interest rather than hostility. That protective tone has largely defined this chapter. The absence of confirmed alarming developments reinforces a key principle. Speculation should not replace verified reporting, and so the narrative now exists in a delicate balance. Sustained attention without escalation, awareness without confirmed crisis. At its core, this moment may be less about a specific health concern and more about institutional recalibration. The British monarchy has survived for centuries by adapting gradually, not dramatically. Catherine's decision to acknowledge concern without surrendering privacy fits within that survival pattern. It signals responsiveness to modern scrutiny while safeguarding family boundaries. The true significance may only become clear in hindsight. Perhaps Prince Louis will quietly resume public life, and this chapter will close with minimal lasting disruption. Or perhaps historians will view this as a turning point in royal communication strategy. For now, one fact remains steady. Behind every crown stands a family navigating uncertainty, just as countless families do beyond palace gates. As weeks pass, one image continues to define this chapter more than any headline. Catherine standing composed, choosing her words with care, aware that every syllable would be examined globally. That moment was not dramatic in volume, but it was significant in implication. It suggested that within the monarchy's structured walls, space exists for maternal instinct to shape communication. Royal institutions are often perceived as immovable, yet history shows they bend quietly when necessary. This was not rebellion, it was recalibration. And recalibration, especially within centuries-old systems, rarely announces itself loudly. Instead, it appears in subtle shifts. A slightly different tone, a measured acknowledgement, a pause where once there would have been silence. For Prince William, this period may ultimately be remembered as a defining test of leadership before the crown ever rests on his head. Leadership within a monarchy is not only ceremonial, it is deeply relational. Observers have noted a strengthened visual unity between him and Catherine during recent appearances. Small gestures, shared glances, coordinated messaging. None of it theatrical, all of it intentional. In moments of uncertainty, visible solidarity becomes a stabilizing force. The public does not expect perfection, it expects steadiness. And steadiness is often demonstrated not through grand speeches, but through consistent presence.